Okay, so let's I just want to check. Okay, with this microphone. Yeah, I think it was about 18. Yeah. So okay, successfully completed. So I was on here. Alright. Make the button call a method. Whenever you add a button to a layout, it's likely you'll want it to do something when the user clicks on it. To make this happen, you need to get the button to call a method in your activity. To get our button to call a method in the activity when it's clicked, we need to make changes to two files. Change the layout file activity underscore beer.xml will specify which method to call in the activity when the button is clicked. Okay. Then change the activity in find beer activity.java. We need to write the method that gets called. Let's start with the layout. Use onClick to say which method the button calls. It only takes one line of XML to tell the Android which method a button should call when it's clicked. All you need to do is add an Android colon onClick attribute to button element and tell it the name of the method you want to call. Okay, so we have onClick find here. Right. Let's try this now. Go to the layout file activity underscore find XML and add a new line of XML to the button element to say the method onClick find here should be called when the button is clicked. Alright, so here go to code button and then we add Android on click is equals to on click. Okay, there we go. And click find it. Now once you've made these changes, save the file. Now that the layout knows which method to call an activity, we need to write the method. Let's take a look at the activity. So when the button is clicked, call method find where in the activity will create the method in the activity over the next few pages. What activity code looks like. When we first created a project for our app, we asked the wizard to create an empty activity called this. The code for this activity is held in the file .java. Open this file by going to this directory and double click on it. Double clicking on it. When you open the file, you'll see that Android Studio has generated some Java code for you. Rather than taking you through all the code that Android Studio may or may not have created, we want you to replace the code that's currently with the code shown here. Okay, so let's go and so we have import. Make sure class extends the Android activity class. Okay, so this is necessary. So import android.app.activity. So we import android.app.activity. Okay. Then we import android.os.bundle. Import android.os.bundle. Then we create a public class with the same name. We have a public class. Okay, so now I'm creating a public class with the same name as our source file activity, and then we define with the annotation. This is the onCreate method. It's called when the activity is launched or when the activity is first created. Okay. Super.onCreate saved instance state, bundle saved instance state. Then set content view tells Android which layout the activity uses. In this case, okay, fine. Set content view, set content r dot layout dot. Okay, so you want it to extend, which extends activity. Then we go, then we add an annotation, override, and we go public void on click, and it takes a bundle uh, saved, but not override, at override, public, protected void on creator. So it is a protected function. We go protect protected void on create, and we have a bundle saved instance state, bundle saved instance state. We define the body, and why does it give me an error? Overriding method super dot on create. Yes, okay, return. Okay. When we go super dot on create, then we call the same function with the same saved instance state, right? We call the same state, then set content view, then we need a view r dot layout dot, yeah, activity underscore, okay. This suggests which layout to use, right? So the above code is all you need to create a basic activity. As you can see, it's a class that extends Android app.activity class and implements the onCreate method. Right. All activity, not this one, have to extend the activity class or one of its subclasses. The activity class contains a bunch of methods that transform your Java class from plain old Java class into a full-fledged card-carrying Android activity. I think this should be blue, and this. Sure. All activities also need to implement the onCreate method. Okay, hold up. None. This should be. This method gets called when the activity objects gets created, and it's used to perform basic setup, such as what layout the activity is associated with. This is done by set content, and this is done by set content view method. In the example above, set content r.layout.activity underscore find bear tells Androids that this activity uses activity find bear as its layout. Okay, this is done by set content view method. In the example above, set content view tells Android to use activity underscore find bear as its layout. On the previous page, okay, replace the code in your version. On the previous page, we added an onClick attribute to the button in our layout and gave it a value of onClick find bear. We need to add this method to our activity so it will be called when the button gets clicked. This will enable, right. This will enable the activity to respond when the user touches the button in the user interface. So add an onClick bear finder. method to the activity. The on-click behavior finder method needs to have a particular signature or otherwise it won't get called when the button specified in the layout gets created. Okay, so it needs to have the following form: public void and view. Okay, the method must be public. Shit. Okay, I'm going to highlight them anyways. So method must be public. The method must have a void return type. Okay, and the method must have a single parameter of type view. Okay. If the method doesn't take this form, then it won't respond when the user presses the button. So this is important. This is because behind the scenes, Android looks for a public method with a void return type value with a method name that matches the method specified in the XML. Okay, the view parameter in the method may seem unusual at first glance, but there's a good reason for it being there. The parameter refers to the GUI component that triggers the method. Okay, in this case, the button. As we mentioned earlier, GUI components such as buttons and text views are all of type view. Okay, if you want a method to respond to a button click, it must be public, have a void return type, and take a single view parameter. So let's update our activity code. Add the onClick behavior finder method below to your activity code. Find here. Okay, so we're using this class, so we need to import it. Import Android view.view. Okay, so we will be using the view class. So import Android.view.view. Okay. Then public class payment activity extends this. We will called when the user clicks the button. So we will create a new function called when the user clicks the button. We will have public void on click find where and it will take a single view parameter. Set to activity.java. So this will be called like this. OnClick needs to do something. Now that we've created the OnClick finder method in activity, I hope the yes. Okay, this error is away, but still touch target is too small. Color spinner, feel like I fixed item, yes, and then spinner ID color, layout margin, top center arrow here. Okay, so the arrow problems layout. So won't it run? So we will worry about that later, I think. The item's height is 24 dp. Where's the height? Spinner, layout margin, gear colors, colors array item, right? Array gear colors. Okay. Then now that we've created the on-click find pair method in our activity, the next thing we need to do is to get the method to do something when it runs. Specifically, we need to get our app to display a selection of different ways such that the bear type such that match different ways that match the bear type the user has selected. In order to achieve this, we first need to get a reference to both the spinner and text GUI component in the layout. This will allow us to retrieve the the value of the chosen bear type from the spinner and display text in the text view. Okay, so we need to get a reference. Use find view by ID to get a reference to your view. We can get references for our two GUI components using a method called find view by ID. This method takes ID of the GUI component as a parameter and returns a view object. You can then cast the return value to the correct type of the GUI component. Here's how you'd use find view by ID to get a reference to the text view with an ID of brands. So we will go text view brands equal text view r dot sorry, is it r or find view by ID, and ID is I want brands text view brand. It's simply how do you pass in the okay dot r dot id dot brand. There we it says that text view. Hmm, do we import text view beforehand? Brands is a text view, so we have to cast it as one. Okay, so do I go import android dot view dot text view? No, view dot text view. Okay, where is this text view located? Import class. Okay, android dot widget dot text view. I think take a closer look at how we specified the ID. Okay, I'm curious, will this run or not? Will this download, download, attachment, update, git, device manager, system. Okay, let's run our app. Okay, build successful. And now we are launching our devices. What were the two errors? Casting is redundant. Brands is never used. That's okay. So it is now launching on my device. Install successfully. Okay. So we have different options. Brown, white. I don't have it. Great. Can I see how much storage? Here demos. Here are settings. Here. Then where are the installed apps? If I may. Right. Apps. Yes. 17 megabytes. Dude. Okay. Anyways. Right. So let's close it for now. I don't think I will be needing it. So I want to delete this and um, let's mention disk UAE Android. Okay, let's delete it. Is it in the okay? It's not in the recycle bin. Okay, great. So take a closer look at how we specified the ID of the text view. Rather than pass in the name of the text view, we passed in an ID of the form r.id.parents. So what does this mean? What's R? Okay, R is a special Java class that enables you to retrieve references to resources in the app. Okay, R.java is a special Java file that gets generated by Android Studio whenever you create or build your app. It lives here in a folder project with the same name as the package of your app. Android uses R.java to keep track of the resources used within an app, and among other things, it enables you to get references to GUI components from within your activity code. That's great. And if you open up R.java, you'll see, okay, app build generated source r dash debug. Okay, so we go to app build generated sources debug, and there is just out.main build variants, dependencies, suggestions, variables, app, no, constraint layout, material, JUnity GP, project, nothing. Okay, maybe is it in the packages, uh, project files, app builds generated, res values, debug, png, debug, nothing. Project non-source file, project source files, debug source, where generated source, Android app. Okay. So we know what project. Let's get this. Hmm. I'm interested. Looking at that. Well, let's try and search. Where is r.java file Android Studio? Hmm. 4 years ago. Create blank activity. There is no r.java file anymore. Why generate source code that needs to be compiled when you can go directly to bytecode and skip compile? I may be mistaken on timelines, but this was the case for library projects by default in application. Okay, the r.txt appears to have IDs in it. It's curious to know how to interact with r.jar. Okay, so let me ask ChatGPT. Why is there no longer r.java file Android Studio? Great question. The r.java file used to be an automatically used to be generated file in Android projects, and it was very important in older versions of Android Studio. However, in modern Android development, you don't see r.java anymore. Instead, it has been replaced by a more efficient build system mechanism. Here's why. Why R.Java was moved from Vue. Migration to Android Gradle plugin, AGP and APT2. Android Studio now uses Android Asset Package, okay, which processes resources in a more modular and efficient way. It's a compiled binary version of R, not a simple Java source file like before. R is now a compiled, so is no longer generated as a visible source file in gen or build directives. Instead, it's compiled directly into build, output as a class or text, and you still use it in code the same way. Okay, where did it go? So, better IDE support in faster builds. By hiding this intermediate file, builds are faster and system avoids unnecessary source generation steps. LIJ function directly understands sources via R simple table and provides autocomplete without needing to rely on the file. Where did it go? Although you don't see R.Java compiled, the class is still generated in the background during build time, and you can find it in app build intermediates. Will it be there? It's where would that be? Resources are so project text archive. No text. Okay, I think I should not go here. Yeah. Okay. If you're using Kotlin, you don't see R.Java because Kotlin doesn't need a file anyways. It interacts directly with the compiled R classes. Okay, right. Move on here. If you open R.Java, you'll see that it contains a series of inner classes, one of each type of resources. Each resource of that type is referenced within the inner class. As an example, R.Java includes an inner class called ID, and an inner class include a static final branch value. Android added this code to R.Java when we use the code @+ ID, then backward slash, this forward, that's forward slash brands in our layout, the line of code. So you subtract R.Java gets generated for you. You never change any of the code within this file, but it's useful to know it's there. Well, it is no longer there. So once you have a view, you can access its methods. The find view by ID method provides you with a Java version of its GUI component. This means that you can can get and set properties in the GUI component using the methods exposed by the Java class. Okay, so let's take a look. Setting the text in a text view. As you've seen, you can get a reference to a text view in Java using this. When this line of code gets called, it creates text view object called brands. You are then able to call methods on this text view object. Let's say you wanted to set the text displayed in the brands text view to bottle of beer. The text view class includes a method called setText that you can use to change text property. Use it like this: set the text to bottle of beer. Okay. So I can use set text method to change the text on the text view. So we go brand dot set text bottle of beer. Yeah, it is hard coded. Suck it. Alright. You got bottle of beer. Nice. So clear all. Then Retrieving the selected value in spinner. You can get a reference to a spinner in a similar way to how you get a reference to a text view. This method and cast it to a spinner. This gives you a spinner object, spinner color, whose methods you can now access. As an example, as an example, here's how you retrieve the currently selected item in the spinner and convert it to a string. Okay, so this is our color dot get selected item string dot value of. So color dot get selected item actually returns a generic Java object. Okay, this is because spinner values can be something other than strings, such as images. In our case, we know that string, so we use if this returns a generic Java object. So we can use string value of to convert the selected item from an object to a string. Okay, so let me get a reference. Sorry, get a reference to text view, spinner thing, spinner. Okay, it is an Android widget. So I will add this Android dot widget dot spinner spinner because spinner color equals concept. I don't know why do I write. We go find view by id r dot id dot color. Okay. Then we have retrieve update the activity code. You know enough to write some code in on-click find where method. Rather than write all the code we need in one go, let's start by reading the selected value from the spinner and displaying it in the text view. Okay, so I can go text view and then string dot value value of. Then we have a generic object type which is color dot get get selected item. There we go. So we can now display. hmm, okay. So we have get selected item returns a generic Java object as it can be as as we can store anything in spinner other than strings like images, etc. That's why we convert the object to string via string dot value of object or method, right? Okay. Hmm. Okay, let's start by reading the selected value from the spinner and displaying it in the text view. Okay, activity magnets. Somebody used fridge magnets to write a new on-click Wayfinder method for us to slot into activity. Unfortunately, a freak kitchen worldwide has dislodged the magnets. Can you piece the code together again? This code needs to retrieve the type of beer selected in the spinner and then display the type in the this should be easy. So we go to draw. We have a text view. Let me just text view. Uh, Maybe I should just add a text. Right, I can do that. Right, we have a view. Put in a view. Then here we go text view. There we go. Then we cast. Is there a cast? Text view cast. Yes. Text view cast. Then we want our sorry find view by ID. Find view by ID. Let's be find view by ID. There we go. And then finally r.id dot brands dot id dot brands. We have spinner of the name color. Then we need a spinner cast. Why do I write spinner? Then I need a spinner cast. Then again find view by ID. And then again we display the resource ID dot color. Then string let's say be a type. Type. Then color dot get selected item. Right, where is get selected item? There we go. Selected item. And finally brands dot set text data. So I should do it like this. The string get type equal string dot of color dot get selected item, and then we pass in data. There we go. This should work. Let's run our app. Yes, on create function needs to be overridden. Set content view. So it should be light, amber, amber, brown, brown, and finally dark, dark, great. So far, so good. Activity magnet solution, yes sir, I got that. Then the first version of the activity. Our cunning plan is to build the activity in stages and test it as we go along. In the end, the activity will take the selected value from the spinner and call a method in a custom Java class, and then display matching types of data. For this first version, our goal is to make sure that we correctly retrieve the selected item from the spinner. Here is our activity code, including the method you picked together on the previous page. Apply these changes. We'll be using these extra classes, so you need to import them. Then we have a get a reference to text view, get a reference to spinner, and get the selected item. The find view returns the view. You need to cast it to the right type. Layout. Then get selected item returns an object. You need to turn it into a string. What does the code does? Before we take Before we take the app for a test drive, let's look at what the code actually does. The user chooses a type of beer from the spinner and clicks on the beer button. The user chooses a type of beer from the spinner and clicks find beer button. This calls a public void on click find beer method in the activity. The layout specifies which method in the activity should be called when the button is clicked via buttons Android on click property. The activity gets references from the spinner to the spinner and text-free GUI components using calls to find view by ID method. Then the activity retrieves the currently selected value of the spinner, in this case amber, and converts it to a string. Then the activity then sets the text property of the text view to reflect the currently selected item in a spinner. Take the test drive, make the changes to the activity file, save it, and then run your app. This time when we click, right, they are not a machine. I added a string to my strings.xml file, but I can't see it in r.java. Why isn't it there? Android Studio generates r.java when you save any changes you've made. If you've added a resource but can't see it in r.java, check that your changes have been saved. R.java also gets updated when the app gets built. The app builds when you run the app. So running the app will also update, but it is no longer there. So what can I do? The value in the spinner, the value in the spinner looks like they're static, as they're set to values in the string. Can I change these values programmatically? You can, but the approach is more complicated than just using static values. We'll show you in the book how you can have complete control over the values displayed in the components just spinner. Okay. What type of object is returned by get selected item? It's declared as type object because we used a string array for the values. The actual value returned in this case is a string. Okay, it is declared as object, but it returns a string. Okay. What do you mean in this case? Isn't it always? Okay. You can do more complicated things with spinner than just display text. As an example, the spinner might display an icon next to each value. As get selected item returns an object, it gives you a bit more flexibility than just returning a string. Okay, so it could be a class object. Does the name onClick find beer matter? All that matters is that name of the method in the activity code matches the name used in the button's onClick attribute in the layout. So why did we have to replace the activity code that Android Studio created for us? IDEs such as Android Studio include functions and utilities that can save you a lot of time. They generate a lot of code for you and sometimes this can be helpful. But when you're learning a new language or development area such as Android, we think it's best to learn about fundamentals of the language rather than what the IDE generates for you. This way you'll develop a greater understanding of the language. So, right. So build the custom Java class. As we said at the beginning of the chapter, the beard by the app decides which beard to recommend with the help of a custom Java class. This Java class is written in plain old Java with no knowledge of the fact that it's being used by an Android app. Custom Java class spec. The custom Java class should meet the following requirements. The package name should be this. The class should be called BeerExpert. It should expose one method, getBrands, that takes a preferred beer color as a string and returns a list of recommended. Okay. So that can do all sorts of things. Build and test the Java class. So we create this. We have Java array list and a list of strings, array list and a simple list. So we create a new array list. So let's create new Java class. Class name is where expert. So we would need to import certain java.util.arraylist and import java.util.list. Okay, so we have a public class view expert. Then, yeah, remove a new, sorry. Okay, then we create a function. This is pure Java code, nothing else. We create a function that returns a list of strings, get brands. Create a function. Let's create a function that returns a list of string called get brands. String get brands and take in a string with what is the type? String color. So then we create another string called brands list string brands, and this is an array list of string. Okay, new array list. We don't define the type here, and we call the constructor of that. Return brand, so it stopped with the error. Return brand. Then we check if color dot equals amber. Brands dot add jack amber red. Else we have jail pale ale and this. Okay. So we create a new array list of strings. So check for the date type. We have if color dot equals amber. If so is the case, then book brands dot add what do we add jack amber and brands dot add red moose. Red moose. And if there is anything other than that, we have brands dot add jail pale ale jail pale ale, and then we have couch stout. Okay, so there we go. Add the expert class to your project. Select the advisor package. Put a new Java class, name the expert, and make sure the package is same. Okay. Enhance the activity to call the custom Java class so that we can get real advice. In version 2 of the activity code, the activity, we need to enhance onClick find web method to call the expert class for their recommendation. The code changes needed are plain on Java. You can try to write the code and run the app on your own, or you can follow along with us. Okay, but before we show you the code changes, try the exercise below. It will help you create some of the activity code you'll need. Okay, so we add this line here. We are expert, we create a new object, right? New update. List. Okay, list string. Data type string builder, the string brand formatted dot append brands dot n. Okay, so we need to just create a string that I did not. So maybe I will continue it later. For now, let's call it a day. And maybe, okay, yeah, no, let's call it retail.